Boston in the early 1990s was a city divided. Crime ran high in its poorest neighborhoods, and inside the Boston Police Department, loyalty often meant more than the law. Officers covered for each other. Brutality was routine. The blue wall of silence was absolute. Michael Cox had just joined the force. A black man in a white-dominated department. He was determined to make a difference. But from day one, he saw how deep the rot went. Black men were stopped, searched, and beaten without consequence, and the lies came easily afterward. Even Cox wasn't immune. Once, another officer's cruiser slammed him into a wall. Another time, he was beaten by mistake. He didn't complain. He wanted to fit in, to prove he belonged. Then came the night that would change everything.
While working undercover in the anti-gang violence unit, I was accidentally identified as the very individual that I was chasing.
Cox was working plainclothes, chasing suspected gang members wanted for murder. It was chaos, a high-speed pursuit through city streets, several departments involved. When he caught up to the suspects, other officers mistook him for one of them. 4 cops descended. They beat him mercilessly. Kicks, fists, batons, until he lay bleeding on the pavement. That's when they realized he was one of their own.
I was beaten severely, abandoned by those who swore to uphold the law, and faced with an unspoken code of retribution simply because I shared the same skin color as the actual perpetrator.
Cox survived. It took 6 months to recover. But when he returned, he discovered the real wound. No one had reported the beating. The department had closed ranks. The silence was deafening. He started getting harassing calls. Officers warned him not to make trouble. But Cox wanted accountability, or at least the truth.
No one should ever endure such violent injustice. That experience painfully underscored that even in the most noble professions, at times, everyone could fall short of the ideals that they promised.
So he did what few in his position ever dared. He sued the Boston Police Department. The lawsuit broke through the blue wall. Years of hidden brutality suddenly had a face. The case ended with a settlement, $900,000 in damages, $400,000 in fees. No officer ever admitted guilt. 3 were fired. 1 got his job back and would later be fired again for brutality. For years, Cox was treated as a pariah inside the department, but he stayed. He stayed because he believed reform had to come from within. He rose through the ranks, detective, supervisor, liaison to the Secret Service, head of forensics reform. Every step, his very presence was a reminder of what Boston had tried to forget. In time, he would become chief of police, leading the same department that once left him bleeding on a sidewalk.
And yet, within the darkness, I found a space for clarity. I learned that maintaining our integrity and compassion is more vital than ever in the face of institutional shortcomings. The human connections I forged reminded me that even when confronted with injustice, the values of empathy, fairness, and accountability guide us.
Commissioner Cox's story is undeniably powerful, but it raises an important question. Why doesn't any of that apply to Karen Reed? You'd expect a man who's personally endured such brutal injustice at the hands of police and who now holds the power to confront it, to never take part in protecting corruption. It defies logic until you consider how much he stands to lose now that he's the one in charge. Alan Jackson's letter to Mayor Wu and the head of the Post Commission eloquently states the issue Michael Cox is facing now. Boston Police Commissioner Michael Cox has been caught in a lie, and not a small one. On July 10, 2025, Commissioner Cox publicly denied any connection to the Karen Reed case or to Officer Kelly Dever. He was asked about the allegation that he met with Dever before she was called to testify in the first Reed trial in 2024, and that he told her to do the right thing. In his unequivocal denial, Cox stated,
"I have nothing to do with Karen Reed. Matter of fact, I didn't even know this person was associated with the Karen Reed case."
He doubled down.
I was struck, like, what do I have to do with the Karen Reed case? I've never said those words together. And so the fact is, it's much to do about nothing.
Those statements were false, patently false. Commissioner Cox, the head of the Boston Police Department, actually asked, what do I have to do with the Karen Reed case? The answer is obvious. One of his officers was dead, murdered, and the victim's body was discovered in the front yard of another Boston police officer. For the commissioner to suggest that he had nothing to do with that case defies both logic and leadership. Common sense tells us he had everything to do with it. Newly obtained evidence proves that Cox knowingly misrepresented his involvement. On February 22, 2024, the FBI's Boston field office sent Commissioner Cox an email explicitly referencing Dever and the Reed investigation. The email, from Assistant Special Agent in Charge Stephen Kelleher to Cox, stated, "Just a reminder, the documents were released to the DA's office late last night. The officer we spoke about is Kelly Dever." The very next day, February 23, 2024, at 11 a.m., Cox's official calendar lists a meeting with Officer Kelly Dever, exactly as Dever would later testify, and Cox would deny. The timeline is indisputable. Cox televised claim that he had nothing to do with Karen Reed and didn't even know this person, Kelly Dever, was associated with the Karen Reed case, was a bald-faced lie, one now disproven by documentary evidence originating from the Federal Bureau of Investigation itself. As the head of a law enforcement agency, Commissioner Cox is an officer pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 6E, Section 1. When a police commissioner lies about his own contacts with the FBI and meetings with an implicated officer, he forfeits the credibility and integrity his oath requires. That is the very definition of a Brady-Giglio violation. Prosecutors have an affirmative duty to disclose any evidence of dishonesty by a government witness or official in every case where the official might either testify or influence the testimony or evidence provided by others. Commissioner Cox now fits squarely within that category. Accordingly, Commissioner Cox must be referred for immediate inclusion on the Brady list maintained by the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office. In addition, the Post-Commission must initiate a full disciplinary review for dishonesty, lack of candor, and conduct unbecoming an officer under Department Policy Section 102, which mandates that employees shall conduct themselves at all times, both on and off duty, in such a manner as to reflect most favorably on the department. This is not a political issue. It is a question of credibility and public trust. When Boston's top law enforcement officer lies about his own knowledge of a case under federal scrutiny, the stain spreads across the entire system. Accountability cannot stop at the commissioner's door. The people of Massachusetts deserve law enforcement leaders who tell the truth, not those who hide behind it. In light of the documented evidence now in the public record, there is only one responsible course: add Commissioner Cox to the Brady list and open an immediate post-inquiry. Commissioner Cox still hasn't learned the hardest lesson of all. You can spend a lifetime doing good, but one bad decision can erase it all, end your career, and become your legacy. The best way to support our channel is by shopping our original artwork and designs at dropmicrodots.com, or to become a valued member at patreon.com/microdots.